Hi, so I'm here with Buffalo News longtime political reporter Bob McCarthy, and Bob's been following the Erie County elections here in Western New York. Now, Bob, can you tell me a little bit about, some of the major races in the area?
Well, there's no question that the big one was the county executive race, as Democratic incumbent Mark Poloncarz was looking for a second term, and he got it big time. He beat Ray Walter, the Republican, a Williamsville assemblyman, 66 to 33%. That's a 2-to-1 victory that is pretty much unprecedented. That level of a victory is pretty much unprecedented in at least the last quarter century of county executive elections here. So the story that we'll have in Thursday's news and online Wednesday night will be about the idea of a mandate and the idea that Mark Poloncarz has claimed a mandate, which is a powerful term in politics. It says that he has the will of the people behind him, and now he's going to have to convince a Republican county legislature to go along with him on that. But he does it very much from a standpoint of strength. So the two big elections, I think, were county executive, county legislature. Nothing changed. Mark Poloncarz is still the county executive, and the county legislature is still led by a Republican coalition. But what it all means, I think, is that Mark Poloncarz certainly enters as a stronger county executive, and will be very interesting to watch in 2016 about how this all shakes out, the dynamic between the county executive and the county legislature.
Now, Bob, what does kind of the huge margin of victory say about Poloncarz, if anything?
Well, it says that he was very much accepted by the electorate here. There have been no major problems. Finances have been pretty well managed. The Bills stadium lease was renegotiated successfully, and that means the Bills are staying, and we all know that just a year or so ago that was a tremendous source of concern. And he also handled himself pretty well during the November megastorm, and he came across as a leader in an emergency, and he brought all these things together. And so what it said was a pretty good affirmation of his leadership. This is only one term. It's the incumbents usually start running into trouble when their shelf life expires somewhere, maybe after their second term, maybe after their third term. But he's, this is how he got into this, is how he approached the election, and he certainly made the case. It was a very difficult case for Ray Walter to make. He did the best he could, but all the stars, moons, and planets just weren't aligned for him this year.
Now, how did the Conservatives do? You mentioned a little earlier that nothing's changed in terms of the control in the legislature and everything.
Yeah, that is now remains 6-5 Republicans, and there's a conservative and an independence member in there with the conservative coalition. So it's going to be, they're going to feel empowered too, because they maintain their position in County Hall. But the county executive, he has worked with them to a large degree, even though they're of the opposing party. And so he would like to have had a Democratic house across the street, so to speak, from the Rath building. Didn't work out that way, but it's not a totally unfriendly situation either. We've seen worse political divides. Just look at Albany or Washington, and it's a lot different, I think.
Now, did the minor parties play any role in this race?
Certainly did. Conservative Party, Chairman Larigo today called to, I would say, crow about all of the victories that he had, and rightfully so. They were the margin in the county legislature race. The Conservatives were between Tom Logren and Guy Marlette. And the big one that they really pulled off, as far as I'm concerned, is the West Seneca supervisor race, in which Democrat Sheila Megan, who was defeated in the Democratic primary in September by Tina Beauvais, pulled this out on minor party lines. Conservative, independents, and I think working families was in there too. That's an unbelievably difficult assignment to win on minor party lines, especially against a Democrat in a Democratic town like West Seneca. And, but she did it, and it's only been done a few times in local history. So what probably happened there is that there was no Republican candidate. So there's still a lot of Republicans in West Seneca who probably couldn't get themselves to vote on the Democratic line, went down on the ballot, saw a familiar name in Sheila Megan on the minor party lines and went there. Conservative Party in Erie County had a very big night on Tuesday.
Now, was there anything else that you were particularly surprised about with this election cycle?
Probably the county executive's margin of victory. As I said, 66 to 33. I think people would have been really overjoyed in Democratic headquarters with a 60-40, but he went way beyond that. And that was a really huge development for them. And Mayor Deister in Niagara Falls pulling off a re-election there, that was pretty good too, because there was a lot of his supporters in Niagara Falls who were quite worried about what might have happened. But he was able to pull that off, mainly probably by the virtue of a write-in campaign which took votes away from his opponent, John Accardo.
Right, and just talking about some of the other major races too, we have the Delaware District Common Council race, which was pretty hot this year.
It was a major race, because we don't see too many Republican challenges anymore in overwhelmingly 6-1 Democratic Buffalo. The last real Republican to be elected to the Common Council was William Marcy way back in 1981. So when Peter Roof launched a candidacy against the Democratic incumbent who had been appointed to a vacancy, his name is Joel Ferraletto, it was kind of a big deal, especially because Dr. Roof, who was an orthodontist, put a lot of money, time, and effort into this thing, and all of a sudden it became kind of a big deal. But it was a huge victory for Joel Ferraletto. And I think what this says is this. I came to the conclusion in 2005 that it's very difficult for a Republican to win in heavily Democratic Buffalo. That was the year that Kevin Halfer mounted a very serious, well-financed, well-thought-out campaign against Byron Brown for mayor, and Kevin Halfer got creamed. I think after that, I came to the conclusion that a Republican candidacy in the city of Buffalo is a fruitless exercise, and I think that Dr. Roof's candidacy in Delaware pretty much sealed the deal about that kind of candidacy once again.
So what's the big takeaway? Like, what did voters say yesterday?
Voters say they like Mark polling cars. Voters also said they don't like politicians in general. There was a 24% turnout. That's about 100,000 voters less than turned out in the last county executive election 4 years ago. They were not excited about this. They did not come out to vote. And the apathy that we see surrounding elections in Erie County just continues to grow.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. And now for more political coverage, where can everyone go? I
would suggest the Buffalo News or buffalonews.com, because we have the largest news staff in upstate New York, and you're going to get the real deal from us.
Thank you so much, Bob.